Yet the encrypted document arrived at Tesla's Fremont headquarters with a classification marking that made Elon Musk's hands tremble as he read the first line. Strategic Partnership Agreement, CCP 2026-147, total value $89 billion. The agreement that would fundamentally alter the balance of power in the global automotive industry was about to be signed, and President Trump's China tariff strategy was not just failing, it was achieving the exact opposite of its intended purpose. Tesla's chief financial officer had just returned from Beijing with an ultimatum disguised as a partnership offer. Chinese authorities, controlling 85% of global lithium processing and 95% of rare earth production, were offering Tesla guaranteed battery supply through 2035 in exchange for complete technology transfer and operational integration with Chinese state enterprises. The alternative was immediate production shutdown, as Trump's tariffs had made domestic alternatives economically impossible. Within hours of the agreement's finalization, Tesla's gigafactory operations began systematic integration with Chinese battery management systems, manufacturing processes, and supply chain networks. But this was not merely commercial cooperation. It was the largest technology transfer from an American company to Chinese state control in modern history, encompassing Tesla's proprietary autopilot algorithms, supercharger protocols, and thermal management systems. The most devastating aspect was not what Tesla was gaining, but what America was losing. Every Tesla innovation developed with government subsidies and tax incentives was now being shared with Chinese competitors who would have access to American technological breakthroughs before they were available to domestic manufacturers. Tesla's partnership had become a pipeline for American intellectual property to flow directly into Chinese industrial strategy. The complete media silence surrounding the deal revealed its true significance. No announcement from Tesla's communications department, no statement from the White House, no coverage from automotive publications. The largest technology transfer in Tesla's history proceeded in absolute secrecy, suggesting coordination between Tesla and Chinese authorities to prevent American intervention until the integration was irreversible. The mathematics were undeniable. Trump's tariffs had created artificial urgency that allowed Chinese negotiators to extract concessions that would have been impossible under normal market conditions. American trade policy had become a weapon of Chinese industrial strategy rather than a tool of American economic protection. The pathway to Tesla's Chinese subordination had been constructed systematically over 18 months as Trump's tariff strategy collided with geological reality that American policy had refused to acknowledge. Chinese control over critical battery materials was not merely market dominance, but physical monopoly. China processed 85% of lithium, 70% of nickel refining, and controlled virtually all rare earth production essential for electric vehicle batteries. Trump's tariffs, designed to force domestic sourcing, had failed to account for the fundamental reality that American alternatives did not exist at commercial scale. Domestic lithium production represented less than 2% of global output. Rare earth processing was virtually non-existent. The infrastructure required for supply chain independence would require $2 trillion in investment and 15 years to complete timelines that Tesla's production schedules and stock price could not accommodate. Tesla's internal analysis, documented in confidential board presentations, revealed that domestic sourcing would increase battery costs by 340%, while reducing performance by 23% and extending delivery timelines by 18 months. No consumer would purchase Tesla vehicles that cost $40,000 more, performed significantly worse, and were delivered years later than Chinese integrated alternatives. The Chinese partnership offered Tesla guaranteed access to materials that American policy could not provide, while eliminating supply chain risks that were destroying other Western manufacturers. CATL, Tesla's primary Chinese partner, already controlled battery supply from Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Ford, and General Motors, giving Chinese authorities leverage over the entire global automotive industry that American tariffs had inadvertently strengthened. Chinese negotiators had leveraged Trump's artificial urgency to extract technology sharing agreements, data access rights, and operational control that Tesla would never have accepted without the threat of production shutdown. The tariffs had transformed normal commercial negotiation into strategic surrender disguised as business partnership. European manufacturers had already demonstrated the futility of Chinese decoupling. Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, and BMW had deepened Chinese integration throughout 2025, despite European Union pressure for strategic autonomy. Chinese battery technology had advanced so rapidly that European alternatives could not compete on performance, cost, or availability. The official Tesla position, communicated through SEC filings and earnings calls, described the arrangement as supply chain optimization and manufacturing efficiency enhancement. No mention was made of technology transfer requirements, Chinese operational control, or the strategic implications of American automotive dependence on Chinese industrial planning. Internal Tesla communications revealed a different reality. Confidential emails between Musk and Chinese officials acknowledged that Tesla was accepting technological subordination in exchange for market access and supply security that American alternatives could not guarantee. The partnership was strategic dependence disguised as commercial cooperation. American industrial collapse. Tesla's Chinese integration created immediate existential pressure on remaining American manufacturers, who faced identical choices between Chinese partnership and technological obsolescence. Ford Dai's electric vehicle division discovered that Chinese integrated competitors could produce equivalent vehicles at costs that made domestic sourcing economically suicidal. General Motors confronted potential bankruptcy of its electric operations as Tesla's Chinese partnership provided access to battery technology that GM could not match through domestic suppliers. The company's stock fell 23% as investors recognized that American manufacturers without Chinese integration faced extinction in electric vehicle markets. The destruction extended throughout American automotive supply chains as component manufacturers lost Tesla contracts to Chinese integrated systems. Domestic battery suppliers, including A123 Systems and Enersys, faced immediate revenue collapse as Tesla redirected purchasing to Chinese partners who provided complete technological ecosystems rather than individual components. United Auto Workers estimated that Tesla's deal would eliminate 47,000 American manufacturing jobs, while creating equivalent employment in Chinese facilities controlled by state enterprises. American automotive employment was being systematically transferred to Chinese control through voluntary corporate agreements rather than forced industrial relocation. Technology. Hemorrhaging. Tesla's partnership formalized comprehensive technology transfer that transformed Chinese competitors into technological equals overnight. Chinese partners gained access to Tesla's autopilot algorithms, supercharger network protocols, battery thermal management, and manufacturing automation systems, representing decades of American innovation partially funded through government programs. The transfer encompassed not just current capabilities, but ongoing research data, providing Chinese companies with advanced knowledge of Tesla's development roadmap before American competitors could access equivalent information. Chinese automotive manufacturers would deploy Tesla innovations, while American firms remained dependent on inferior domestic alternatives. Defense implications were catastrophic, as Tesla technologies had dual-use applications for military electric vehicles, autonomous systems, and energy storage that could enhance Chinese military capabilities. American taxpayer-funded innovation was being transferred to strategic competitors through voluntary corporate partnership. Intellectual property protection became meaningless as Tesla's agreement required sharing proprietary information that Chinese partners could exploit for competitive advantage. American innovation was being monetized by Chinese enterprises while providing commodity materials and manufacturing services with minimal value-added content. Supply chain weaponization. Chinese control over Tesla's operations created immediate leverage over American automotive policy that could be exercised during international tensions. Tesla production could be halted through supply restrictions that would affect American employment, vehicle availability, and climate policy implementation that depended on electric vehicle adoption. The leverage extended beyond Tesla to the entire American electric vehicle ecosystem, as Tesla's supercharger network provided charging infrastructure for multiple manufacturers. Chinese operational control over Tesla could affect American electric vehicle viability regardless of domestic manufacturing capabilities. Strategic material access became subject to Chinese political control rather than market mechanisms, creating vulnerability that military alliances could not address. NATO Article 5 provided no protection against economic pressure exercised through supply chain restriction rather than military force. American energy transition policy became dependent on Chinese cooperation for implementation, compromising climate change response, and renewable energy development. Environmental policy had been subordinated to Chinese industrial strategy through Tesla's partnership precedent. Trade policy destruction. Trump's tariff strategy was exposed as fundamentally counterproductive as Tesla's Chinese partnership demonstrated that tariffs accelerated rather than reduced American technological dependence. The policy achieved opposite results, while providing Chinese negotiators with leverage to extract concessions that normal conditions would not have allowed. Other American companies faced identical pressure to choose between Chinese partnership and inadequate domestic alternatives. The tariffs created artificial urgency that benefited Chinese strategy by forcing American corporations into arrangements they would not have pursued voluntarily. Congressional oversight of technology transfer became complicated as Tesla's partnership was structured through legal mechanisms that circumvented traditional regulatory review. Existing frameworks were inadequate for addressing voluntary information sharing rather than forced transfer through joint venture requirements. International credibility suffered as allies recognized that American trade policy was ineffective and potentially counterproductive for maintaining Western technological independence. European and Japanese companies observed Tesla as Chinese integration and concluded that American leadership on China policy was unreliable. The moment of irreversible transformation arrived when the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States concluded its emergency review of Tesla's Chinese partnership and determined that the national security implications were so severe that the agreement could not proceed, but that blocking the partnership would result in Tesla's immediate bankruptcy and catastrophic disruption of American electric vehicle infrastructure. The classified CFIUS finding revealed that Tesla's Chinese integration had progressed so rapidly that unwinding the partnership would require shutting down all battery production for 18 months, while alternative supply chains were developed. During that period, Tesla could not manufacture vehicles, service customers, or maintain supercharger operations that other manufacturers depended on for electric vehicle viability. The committee faced an impossible choice: allow Chinese control over critical American technology, or accept the collapse of America's most successful electric vehicle manufacturer during a period when electric adoption was essential for climate policy and energy security. Either option represented strategic defeat for American technological independence. President Trump's response to the CFIUS briefing established irreversible precedent for Chinese partnership acceptance despite national security concerns. Rather than blocking Tesla's deal and accepting economic consequences, the administration negotiated enhanced oversight mechanisms that provided the appearance of control while accepting Chinese technological integration. The enhanced oversight consisted of reporting requirements and American representation on management committees, but Chinese partners retained operational control over supply chains, technology development, and production planning. American oversight was procedural rather than substantive, designed to satisfy political requirements rather than ensure technological independence. The precedent immediately affected other pending Chinese integration proposals from General Motors, Ford, and aerospace companies facing similar pressures. CFIUS had demonstrated that national security concerns would be subordinated to economic necessity when Chinese partnership was the only alternative to industrial collapse. European allies interpreted Tesla partnership approval as American acceptance of Chinese technological dominance, accelerating their own Chinese integration and abandoning hopes for transatlantic cooperation on China containment. The European Union suspended strategic autonomy initiatives and began negotiating comprehensive Chinese partnerships. Chinese authorities recognized that American resistance had collapsed and accelerated demands for similar partnerships across semiconductor, aerospace, and defense industries where supply chain control could be leveraged for technology transfer. Tesla's partnership became the template for systematic Chinese penetration of American strategic industries. 6 months after formalization, Tesla operated as America's most successful automotive manufacturer, while functioning essentially as a Chinese technology subsidiary with American branding. Tesla vehicles were designed in California, but critical components were manufactured in China, supply chains were managed from Beijing, and technology development was shared with Chinese state enterprises. The transformation had revealed something more fundamental than trade policy failure or corporate misjudgment. It exposed the mathematical impossibility of maintaining technological independence when strategic competitors controlled essential materials and manufacturing capabilities that domestic alternatives could not provide at competitive timelines or prices. American industrial policy had been forced to choose between ideological consistency and economic survival, with predictable results. When Tesla faced a shutdown without Chinese partnership, government resistance collapsed regardless of national security implications. The choice between Chinese integration and industrial collapse was not really a choice when economic consequences exceeded political costs. Tesla's success under Chinese partnership demonstrated to other American companies that strategic subordination could be financially rewarding while maintaining the appearance of corporate independence. Stock price, production volumes, and market share all improved after Chinese integration, providing a model that other manufacturers began emulating despite national security concerns. International observers recognized that American technological leadership had been transferred to China through voluntary corporate partnerships rather than forced acquisition or military conquest. Chinese industrial strategy had achieved through economic leverage what traditional pressure could not accomplish: control over American strategic technology with corporate cooperation and government acquiescence. The transformation was complete, but disguised as commercial success rather than strategic defeat. Tesla remained American in legal structure and public perception, while operating under Chinese technological control that determined capabilities, supply chains, and strategic direction. American capitalism had been maintained as facade for Chinese industrial integration. The silence surrounding the partnership had given way to careful perception management that emphasized Tesla's American identity while obscuring Chinese operational control. The arrangement was presented as international cooperation rather than technological subordination, allowing political leaders to avoid acknowledging strategic implications they had been forced to accept. Tesla's Chinese partnership marked the end of American automotive technological independence and the beginning of hybrid systems, where American companies maintained market presence while accepting Chinese supply chain control, technology sharing, and strategic direction. The arrangement satisfied immediate requirements while compromising long-term autonomy in ways that could not be reversed. The precedent would reshape American industrial strategy across sectors where Chinese supply chain control could be leveraged for technology transfer and operational influence. The age of American technological independence was ending not through dramatic confrontation, but through gradual integration that served immediate business needs while compromising strategic capabilities. Tesla's partnership represented the moment when American industrial policy acknowledged that global supply chain integration had progressed beyond the point where technological independence was economically viable for companies competing internationally. The choice between Chinese cooperation and business failure was inevitable, given constraints of resource availability and technological complexity that American policy had failed to address before Chinese dominance became unshakable. The transformation was irreversible because it reflected geological and industrial realities rather than policy preferences. Chinese control over strategic materials and manufacturing could not be overcome through government programs requiring decades of investment that market competition would not allow. Tesla's partnership was mathematically inevitable, given the foundation of resource scarcity and technological dependence that American leadership had failed to recognize until Chinese leverage became absolute.